big picture, because I think you and I are in the same place right now when we're looking at the realm of human endeavor or the world of work. We're
right.
sort of unspooling the last 150 years where the gig was, how do we make people more compliant, more fit in the box, more obedient? How do we turn flesh and blood human beings into semi-programmable robots? Now, the tough news is we live in a world, in an economy where actually we're demanding the full imagination, passion, initiative, drive, energy of every single human being. We want to design organizations and design work to go with the grain of humanity. So it's kind of one of those good, bad challenges, right? It should be really easy to go with the grain of humanity, but in fact, we have to undo a lot of stuff. So I would love it if you could just give me your take on that sort of economic human moment that we're unraveling right now.
So beautifully said.
Thank you.
We had bookstores before we had book publishers. And we had cars before we had gas stations. We built our culture around the economic engine of the time. So for 10,000 years, we farmed. Before that, for 50,000 years, we were hunters. And when we were hunters, we built a society that rewarded people who hunted. And when we were farmers, we built a society that rewarded people who farmed. And you can then see what happened in the 1800s, which is we, for the first time ever, got cheap energy. Cheap energy can be applied to a process and get productivity. And then we built cheap factories that could make stuff. Well, what does that do to society? What it does is it creates a society where we have a public school that teaches you to work in a factory. The reason it's against the law for 12-year-olds to work in factories is because the Ku Klux Klan argued vehemently for child labor laws because the kids were taking jobs away from members of the Ku Klux Klan. And the deal that they made with factory owners is, you got to send your kids to school, but don't worry, because at school, we'll teach people to become more compliant at doing what you want, because we needed more factory workers. It's not natural to go to a place for 11 hours, sit indoors, and hit the same thing over and over again. We had to train people to do that. So we built this whole culture around that, and we think that's normal. It's not normal any more than it's normal to farm all day or normal to hunt all day. So, alert observers, and I'll put Polly in that category, say, well, now what we're demanding is to bring humanity to work, and we want inspiration and we want passion. But that's not really true. A few organizations want that. A few organizations want people who are going to be the creatives and are going to set the standards and set the tone. And those are the only people who are getting paid an unfair wage. That the wage for everyone else is going through the floor. Because if I'm just hiring a barista, if I'm just hiring a guy who puts screw A into slot B, I want the cheapest guy. So the real debate that you have to ask yourself if you're a worker is, do you want a job where they'll miss you if you're gone? A job where only you can do it? A job where you get paid to bring yourself to work? Because those jobs are available. In fact, there's no unemployment in that area. Or do you want a job where you're racing to the bottom, where your job is to do your job, where you do what you're told, and understand the problem with the race to the bottom is you might win. And that's not good, right? So there's this fork in the road. And then if you're an entrepreneur listening to this or a CEO listening, you gotta say, what kind of company do I want? Do I want a company that wins because we answer RFPs and we're 10% less than the competition, which is a really hard thing to do unless you're Walmart, right? Again, a race to the bottom. Or do we want to build the organization where there is no RFP because we're the only people on earth who can do it, where there is no substitute? So that fork in the road is there, matches the other fork in the road, and it's still a choice. Mm-hmm. And I don't think 10 years from now it's going to be a choice. I think 10 years from now, all good jobs, by every measure, will be jobs where you have to be a human. And all successful organizations will be staffed by a large number of people, if not all, who are human. And where it really gets funky is places like the assembly line for pacemakers. I don't want the guys in the pacemaker line to be human, actually. I'd like them to be automatons who never screw up one pacemaker. But those kinds of jobs aren't going to have a lot of growth associated with them, and they're probably not going to be done in your neighborhood, and they're probably not going to be done by people like you who have a mortgage like you do. And so I think we've got to instead really obsess about the fact that being human, fortunately, I think, is our only option.